everyone, welcome back to Tea and Lit. In today's video, we are continuing the Dark Academia series where I'm sharing a little bit about things to help you get into the Dark Academia vibe, to explore the Dark Academia aesthetic, to see if it's something that you affiliate with. The first video in this series was what is Dark Academia? The second one was types of academia aesthetics, because Dark Academia is not the only one. Then we did books to check out, authors to check out, artists and musicians to check out, TV shows and movies to check out, and today is going to be hobbies and sports to check out. So, let's get into it. Woohoo! Let's start with sports, because all of these are very pretentious sports. If there is one way to describe Dark Academia, it seems that it's going to be pretentious. Dark Academia definitely gives me strong East Coast vibes, and that could be because my family's from the East Coast and they're a little pretentious. My dad is gonna be so mad I said that. We'll see if Keith keeps it in. He may take it out. But some of like the sports that you have in your head about like East Coast prep school kids that are too rich and don't know what to do with themselves, these are the sports that they are going to be involved in. Some of the hobbies are things that regular people do, but the sports seem like distinctly rich East Coast people. The first one is rowing. I don't know why that's an East Coast sport, because like we have rivers here and large bodies of water. Like Michigan is huge. Rowing is the first one. Probably, I think maybe like because of like the investment. I don't know how much a boat and oars cost. Maybe it's a lot. I don't know. Next up is fencing. I saw this meme online and it was like, fencing is the sport we should all take up in 2020 because it meets all of the needs. You're in a full protective suit, you're 6 feet away, and you have to wear a mask. And I thought, brilliant! We should all take up fencing. I wouldn't want to do like fencing because I would want to do real swords. Real, aggressive samurai swords or long swords. Viking swords. With my teeny tiny little arms, which are stronger than they look. Well, you can't see, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, next one is tennis. My brother has a good tennis story. Perhaps one day we'll share it. It's very funny. Next is rugby. Now, this is the sport that I've been saying for years. If anything ever happened to football in the United States, rugby would be the thing to take it. So there's this idea that I have heard people from other countries say, like, well, you know, if American football wasn't a big deal, then Americans would watch soccer or football, what everybody else in the world calls football. And I would argue that is not true, because soccer does not meet our violence needs the way rugby does. Rugby is a great sport. I do watch soccer. I miss soccer right now, actually. Especially now, because football is not going to be what it ought to be. Basketball is fine, but it's also kind of weird to watch. Baseball I've never cared about. But if anything ever happens to American football, rugby will be the thing to take it over. And it just gives you like Highland vibe games. Like it's everything you need in a sport, I feel like. I love rugby. I absolutely love rugby. And I think the rugby players are so good looking. In case you're wondering my views on that. Next up is golf. I hate golf. I don't consider golf a sport at all. I consider it a hobby. Golf is boring and golf is stupid. Except one of my favorite priests, Father Sports, loves golf. So, Father Sports, if you're watching this, I apologize. Next up is polo. The only thing I know about polo is that the princes in the UK play it. And it has horses. And I do like Ralph Lauren polo clothes. But I don't think that counts. Next up is water polo. I had a friend in high school who played water polo. She had ripped shoulders. She was so strong. Next are equestrian sports. These are the things that I would totally want to get into. Not so much dressage, but I would just love to ride horses. Equestrian sports seem so lovely because you're connected to the animal, and that just seems so peaceful. I would love to try some equestrian sports. Next up is a sport that I did try and I did enjoy, and that is ice skating. I don't know if our rinks are open at this point. I feel like you could totally do a free skate in 2020 and not have too many risks involved, but ice skating is something that's super enjoyable. I've never ice skated outside. I've only ever skated inside at a rink. But ice skating is a great physical activity and sport, and I don't think the investment is too bad. You can rent skates, and it's obviously, like anything else, skates are varying degrees of expensive depending on how much time and effort you're putting into it. But they hold up pretty well if you can take care of them. So ice skating is a good sport to try. Another sport that I really, 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 really want to try, but I don't even know where to go for it. I think some of my local forest preserves have this, but is archery. I would love to do archery. I've always been attracted to archery ever since Legolas in Lord of the Rings. It continued with Merida from Brave. I just absolutely love archery. Who else was a good archer in some sort of movie or franchise that I watched? Katniss Everdeen, in the books, The Hunger Games. So I would love to try archery. That seems like a really fun activity and a helpful activity to learn how to do, because you can then hunt for deer and eat, or squirrels, or whatever, but it seems like a better life investment activity than some of the other sports. I don't know how golf translates into survivalisms. Rugby does. You may need to have to tackle somebody who comes to take your meat from your family, and you have to, beat the crap out of them, tackle them to the ground, and scrum about it, right? So I like the things that translate into real life possible circumstances after the fall of civilization. And archery seems like one of those things. One of the things that doesn't, but I also love, is dance/ballet or ballroom dancing or anything like that. When I was a little kid, I hated ballet. I got older and I developed an appreciation for ballet. I danced. I loved dance. My favorite was jazz. I never really did hip hop. And I hated tap. Thoroughly hated tap. But I would love to try, this is going to be weird, I would love to try river dancing, because that looks so much fun. Those river dancers look like they're just having an absolute blast. So maybe someday, I feel like tap is like the reject cousin of river dancing. Not to be too harsh, but that's how I feel about tap. I really hated tap when I was a kid. I did palms in high school, but yeah. Dance is a great, phenomenal physical activity that I would recommend to anybody. I think that it is a great sport to get your body moving and to challenge your body to do new things, to try new things, to jump higher, to stretch further. And I think that dancers don't get enough credit for their strength and their effort and the sportsmanship involved in dance, because they have to be prim and proper and perfect and adorable. And I don't think people fully understand the depth of work on the body and the mind that goes into like even low grade dancers. So I don't mean that harshly. I mean young people dancing, like not like primo ballerina people. Anyway, let's move on to activities. So the first one is chess. Chess is Keith's favorite board game, I think. He used to play with my dad all the time. He was on the chess team. If he wants me to share that. If he doesn't want me to share that, then this will get cut out. But he's really good at chess. I'm not very good at chess. I lack the strategy necessary for chess. And I tend to play very sensibly, where my queen just stays really close to my king, and my king is surrounded by everybody else. And then they take people out one by one. I'm not a very good offensive player at any of these games. I'm much better at defense. But that's because I'm from Chicago. We're a defensive city, aren't we? Next up is Clue, because it's a murder mystery game. And so who in the dark academia aesthetic doesn't love a good murder mystery? I quite love the game of Clue. The thing I love most about Clue is that it's not so much about what's happening on the board, but what your other players are behaving like, what they're doing, what they're saying, what they're acting like. And so I quite love Clue. It's definitely a favorite board game of mine. In the video that I did, movies and TV shows that can put you in the dark academia vibe, I mentioned Knives Out, which came out in 2019, and it's basically Clue on the screen, and it was such a fun movie. Next up is cards games like poker. They are good games to just kind of, when you're in the middle of a study session and you take a 15-minute break to sit down and play a round of cards with your friends at the library, is, an easy card game. Next up are some of the activities that I'm more familiar with. So things like knitting and crocheting. I am not very good at knitting, but I do try. And Crocheting hurts my wrist more than knitting does, but that doesn't mean that I've given up on it. So knitting and crocheting are things that dark academics can do. They're really nice to just kind of turn on some music or even turn on a movie or a TV show and just sit on a comfortable chair in the fall with a candle. Very relaxing and restful. Next up is gardening. I have mentioned my gardening in past videos and the mixed results I've had with gardening, but getting into gardening is a really great dark academia activity because it teaches you patience, first of all, which we all could use, but also it can teach you things about the natural world. I like gardening because I'm really interested in natural medicine, and so learning about different types of plants and how those plants can help you in your body and how those plants react to other things is a lot of fun. And so the study of gardening is actually really, really entertaining, and also it can provide you and your family with healthy food at the end of it, and also beautiful flowers. You know, imagine putting on your desk roses that you clipped from your own garden that you grew yourself in, you know, that's just so lovely. So gardening is a great dark academia activity. Another thing is drawing. I have mentioned in the past that my brother is a drawer and he's really talented and I really want him to share the things that he does. So please in the comments below, give him some encouragement to share some of his artwork, or maybe even to do like a streaming video of how he does his art. My favorite thing that he draws are birds. He draws birds beautifully. And you can hear him talking very loudly in the background, but that's okay. Next up is cooking. I love to cook, but one of the things that I love most about cooking is kind of to immerse yourself in a culture and then cook with that culture. So particularly with the tea aspect of tea and lit, something that we want to do in the future, but we don't have any immediate plans for, but that we definitely will at some point, is to do period and location inspired tea parties and to share information about how the people drank tea. Tea is like a universal drink. Every culture has some kind of tea. And when I was doing some research on particularly Irish tea, this was something that I thought was super interesting, was how the tea traditions come about. I have had English-inspired afternoon teas, low teas as they're called. We call them high teas in America, but that's totally wrong. They're low teas. And we'll probably do a video explaining the difference between high and low tea in English culture. But we tend to consider English teas, or Southern tea, because we do drink sweet tea around here. But Irish tea I thought was super interesting. I was doing some reading on, and I learned that as a result of the potato famine, this custom arose where people would offer someone tea and sustenance more than once. So if somebody came to your house and you said, hey, would you like a cup of tea? It is the custom to refuse the first and sometimes second time that they ask you for tea, if you want any tea. And that came about because people wanted to, you know, kind of maintain visuals and say, you know, you're in my house and I want to have hospitality, but they may not have actually had extra food and extra sustenance to share with you. And so this custom arose where people would say no thank you, and if the hostess or host asked 2 or 3 more times, then that meant that they really did have something to share and you could accept it. So this custom arose where when you go to an Irish home, you should refuse tea at least a couple of times, because they may or may not have tea, but they want to be respectful and be a good host, and you don't want to take food out of somebody else's mouth. And this custom arose after the potato famine. So I just thought that was super cool how the history of what's going on has impacted the tea tradition. So anyway, cooking is a good dark academia activity because you can learn about a culture, learn about a period in history, and then cook to it. And I think that cooking is the most immersive experience you can have because it hits all of your senses in a way that just book reading doesn't. Even watching videos or something teaching about it, or even videos from the time or place, doesn't quite get to the crux of the matter quite like a hot pot of stew can. So I am a huge fan of cooking. That's something that I love. Another dark academia activity is calligraphy. This is something that I have literally just started thinking about. I'm not good at it, but I had a friend a coworker who was phenomenal at calligraphy, and she would just sit at work and practice her calligraphy, and she was so good. And I would love to do calligraphy well, mostly because people make such beautiful notes with their calligraphy, and I would love to be able to make my history notes with really gorgeous calligraphy. And maybe when I start studying natural medicine, to do my natural medicine, I don't know. But I want to do art more. I'm not very artistic as much as I'd like to think. I can write, but that's about it. Speaking of art is painting. Again, something that I tried was watercolor painting. Not very good, but that does not mean I'm giving up on it. But painting is something that is really great for dark academia. And the last one is bookbinding. I have done reading on bookbinding, and that seems like so much fun. And a lot of these books that I have, I would really love if I could, like this one's used, and so it's a little bit not great. I don't know what to say, but I would love to pull the books themselves out, and then recover with leather, because I think leather binding is just so gorgeous, but at the same time, very, very, very expensive. Even as at the used bookstore, they're expensive. So if I could put leather binding on these, I have tons of hardcover books that I've gotten for super cheap. If I could put leather on them, I think that would be so fun, and it would be a way cheaper way to go about getting leather-bound books. So bookbinding, I think it would be a super fun hobby to have. And I know Carolyn Marie said that if she got her master's degree, she doesn't know if this is an option, but she would like to get her master's degree in bookbinding. And I agree. I think that would just be so much fun. Anyway, these are some hobbies and activities in sports that you can check out if you are interested in the dark academia aesthetic, to varying degrees of accessibility. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye!